Hey friends, so you're here because you want to learn how to make this beautiful black monochromatic geode cake, and I'm going to show you just how I did. Let's get straight to it. First, we'll start by making some black buttercream. Making black or any other dark colored buttercream is not as difficult as you think. I'm adding a few drops of black gel food coloring to 1 1/2 cups of white buttercream. The goal is to get close to the shade of the color that you're looking for. This step is really important because you don't want to do too much. Don't start adding too much food coloring at one time. Start gradually, because if you add too much, then that's when your buttercream gets to tasting like medicine. The buttercream is looking pretty good so far, but I'm really trying to achieve a midnight black color. I took 1/4 cup of black buttercream and popped it in the microwave for about 10 seconds. My goal was not to melt the buttercream. I just wanted to soften it enough to intensify the color. I mixed the softened buttercream back into my original batch of buttercream, and I got that really dark midnight black color. So now it's time to frost the cake. I'm not going to go into detail about how I frost my cakes and I get smooth sides and sharp edges, because I have a whole nother YouTube video that will walk you through that in detail. But let me just say this. You need to have a bench scraper, you need to have a smoother, and you need to have the right buttercream consistency. If you are struggling with sharp edges and smooth sides, you also need practice. I can't stress how important it is to practice. It does not matter what technique anyone teaches you. If you are not applying what you are learning, you will not get better. Now we can get to the fun part. So I'm using a smooth paring knife to trace the outline where I'm going to place the geode crystals. I like to just use the tip of the paring knife to lightly score my cake. I like to do this so that I can get an idea of what the shape looks like before I cut into the cake. Once I'm satisfied with how the side of the cake looks, then I apply the same exact technique to the top, just lightly scoring the shape. Now I'm inserting my paring knife a little deeper into the cake just so I can get past those layers of buttercream. What I really love about this design is that you can have fun with it. You can create whatever shape you like. There's no limitations. Here you can see why I suggest that you use a small paring knife, because it allows you that flexibility to get in there and start removing some of that buttercream and cake. I am working with cold cake and this chocolate, so I'm trying to be mindful of that as I cut out some of that buttercream and cake. As you can see, I'm not cutting too deep into the cake. I personally don't like for my geode cakes to be too deep. And also, if you're making this for a client, you don't want to compromise all of the filling just for the design. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the beauty in this design. Next, I'm going to take some buttercream and I'm going to use that to cover the exposed cake. This buttercream acts as a crumb coat, and I'll be using it so that my crystals have something to stick to. This application does not need to be smooth or perfect because it will be covered with the crystals. I bought some rock candy on Amazon and I'm going to use that for my crystals. Initially, these pieces were smoother than your typical rock candy sucker. So what I did was I put a handful in a plastic bag, and then I took my rolling pin and I just smashed them with my rolling pin, like lightly tapped them, so that way I can get that jagged rock effect. This step is very repetitive, but trust me, it comes together in the end. You're just going to continue to apply those crystals to your buttercream. Do not put your buttercream in the fridge. Your cake should not go back in the fridge once you apply the buttercream, because again, your buttercream is acting as the glue that is going to hold the rock crystals in place. As you can see, I'm using tweezers to apply each crystal to the cake, and I am not following any special technique. I turned on a Netflix movie and I just got to work because, like I mentioned, this part is very repetitive. This probably took me a good 25 minutes. You don't have to use the small crystals like I am. You can use the larger ones, but I personally think it comes out so much better and so much more realistic when you use the small crystals. Once I'm done, I pop the cake in the fridge to allow the crystals and buttercream to set. Next, I'm using some black gel-based food coloring to paint the crystals. I'm sure that you can also use an oil-based food coloring like Color Meal. I just never have, but I don't see why it wouldn't work the same. I'm not mixing the food coloring with anything. I am just using it straight from the bottle, and I am taking my brush and dabbing it into the crystals. When you're applying the food coloring, make sure that you are lightly dabbing it into the crystals so that you don't cause any of them to fall out of place. I like to start from the inside and work my way to the perimeter. Repeat this process until all of your crystals are covered. Look how beautiful and majestic this cake looks. I could leave it just like this, but I'm going to add some flowers to finish it off. Since this is a monochromatic cake, I wanted to make sure that I use black flowers, so I'm using silk flowers from Michaels. The goal was to stagger the flowers and have them extend above the top of the cake. I love this technique because it's definitely giving modern, and it also gives the illusion of the flowers floating above the top of the cake. This is definitely one of my favorite cake designs. It's 10 out of 10, highly recommend. I hope this tutorial was helpful, and please, if you make a cake like this, tag me on Instagram at the Cake Canvas Studio so that I can see all of your creations. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share it with a friend.